Chapter 20. In the basement, Marv shook himself into consciousness. Every muscle in his body ached, not to mention the staple cuts. That kid was asking for it. When Marv found him, there would be no mercy. He stood up and took a step forward, right into the monster sap. Whoa! 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 Marv's legs went out from under him. He landed on the floor with a thunk. Ha! The old slime trick, he thought. Well, if you just braced yourself carefully and slid, like an ice skater. He got up and steadied himself. Then he slid his leg forward. He glided across the floor. It was working. Well, almost. He hadn't thought about stopping. He slipped closer to the shelving unit on the opposite wall. The shelving unit with the open paint cans. Crash! The shelves came down. Paint glopped over Marv's hair. It coated his face and splashed onto his clothes. Ah! The worst part was the stinging in his eyes. Standing up, he tried to wipe them off, but his hands and sleeves were both drenched. He could squint enough to see a small piece of cheesecloth on the floor. That would work. He picked it up and tried to wipe his eyes, but the cheesecloth wasn't really wiping. In fact, it was stuck to his skin. He gave it a desperate pull. Rip! Reeling with pain, Marv looked down at the cloth. His eyebrows, mustache, and goatee were there, completely removed by the glue from Kevin's hot glue gun. Ooh, that sounds painful. Marv threw the cloth down. There had to be another way out, a way that didn't involve much walking. Over his shoulder, he spotted a dangling rope. It led back up into the foyer. He reached up and gave it a tug. It held fast. He tugged harder. It seemed strong enough to hold him. Marv began hoisting himself upward. His legs left the floor. Just outside the foyer, the force of Marv's weight pulled the bag of plaster closer to the missing floor. And closer. When Marv noticed the burlap sliding over the hole above him, he tried to scramble down. Too late. The bag fell over the side. It smacked Marv on the head, sending him to the basement. He hit bottom in a cloud of thick, white dust. Coughing and spitting, he pushed himself to his feet. I'm gonna murder that kid, he vowed. Taking care to step over the plaster, not the sap, Marv retrieved the rope. He tossed it over one of the foyer's exposed floor beams. That was strong enough to hold his weight. His eyes stinging with anger, not to mention the paint and plaster, he raised himself toward the first floor. Kevin was waiting upstairs in the living room. He stood next to the open double doors. He could hear Marv grunting in the foyer and Harry mumbling in the bathroom. Now was the time for the next phase. Don't you guys know that a kid always wins against two idiots? He taunted. In the bathroom, Harry stopped wiping the soot off his face. He turned toward the sound of the voice. Kevin turned and ran toward the ladder, just as Marv peeked up over the foyer floor. Harry! He shouted. He's in the living room! Harry clomped out of the bathroom. He got to the living room in time to see Kevin disappearing up the ladder and through the hole to the second floor. Grabbing the rickety ladder, he began climbing himself. When he got near the top, he felt the ladder sag. He looked up. The top rung, which had been cut halfway through, was breaking under Harry's weight. With a snap, it gave way. Harry plummeted to the floor. As he landed with a loud crash, Marv skidded into the room. He looked up at Harry, then looked up. He went upstairs. No kidding, Harry snapped. Come on, help me up. As Marv gave his partner a hand, Kevin's head appeared in the hole of the ceiling. Why don't you guys try the stairs? He suggested. The two of them rushed to the bottom of the stairs, but just as they started to climb, Harry pulled Marv back. Hold on, he said. Harry stomped on the first step, running in place, then quickly stepped down and backed away. An empty paint can came sailing down the stairs. It landed harmlessly on the floor. Harry gave Marv a knowing grin. Ow! Harry yelled. Marv giggled at the trick. That's one, Harry whispered. Marv nodded. I'll get him, Harry! He yelled loudly. He jumped on the first step and repeated what Harry had done. Another paint can flew downward. Marv ducked away in plenty of time. Ow! He shouted. Then he whispered, Then he whispered to Harry, That's two. Now the kid thought they were both cooked out. It was the perfect time to strike. He'd been completely off his guard, trapped on the second floor. "Let's go," Harry said, taking the stairs two at a time. Both of them raced up to ambush Kevin. Chapter 21. Above them, Kevin waited patiently. When he heard the footsteps coming up, really coming up, he lifted the metal pipe off the floor. One end of the rope was tied firmly around the middle of the pipe. The other end was tied to the railing. Holding the pipe over his head, he walked to the top of the stairs and let fly. Harry and Marv looked like two deer caught in a car's headlights. They froze, their eyes bugged open. "Ah!" They screamed in unison. The pipe clipped them both across the chest. It lifted them off their feet and sent them downward to the foyer, and through the foyer floor into the basement. They hit the cement with a crunch. Marv slowly raised himself up on his elbows. "That's 3, he said. On the second floor, Kevin took out his jackknife. The pipe was swinging over the stairwell on the rope. He leaned down and cut the pipe loose. It fell to the stairs and began rolling down. Harry and Marv looked up. They were just in time to see the pipe rolling over the edge of the foyer floor and give them a final conk on the head. "That's 4, Marv said. Kevin ran to the end of the second floor hallway. There behind the door with the missing knob was the stairway going up. He pulled open the door and picked up the rope that dangled down from the third floor. Making a quick loop in the end of the rope, he listened for Harry and Marv. He heard them climbing up from the basement into the foyer. "Do you guys give up?" he called out. Downstairs, the two men were fuming. At the sound of Kevin's voice, they sprinted up to the second floor, shielding their faces. "You better say every prayer you ever heard, kid," Harry shouted. "I hope your parents got you a tombstone for Christmas," Marv said. Kevin stuffed the loop out through the hole. Then he ran up the stairs to the third floor, pulling the door shut behind him. At the top, he checked the rope he had tied to the handle of the huge tool chest to make sure it was tight. Then he pushed the chest to the very edge of the top step. "I'm up here, and I'm really scared," he said. Harry and Marv clambered down the second floor hallway. They stopped when they got to the door. Harry pulled on the loop of rope, expecting the door to swing open. Instead, 3 feet of rope came out of the hole. Harry looked at it, baffled. From behind the door, there was a rhythmic clanking. "What's that sound?" Harry said. He and Marv put their ears to the door. Wham! The tool chest came slamming into the door. It blew the hinges off the jamb. Harry and Marv flew across the hall and crashed against the opposite wall. "I think," Marv said as they sank to the floor, "that was the sound of a tool chest falling down the stairs." Above them, Kevin was scrambling up the stairs and onto the roof. He ran to the edge and tugged at the rope around the bag of cement. It held fast. The rest of the rope was still coiled in the bucket of kerosene. The leather work gloves were lying face up on the floor. He put on the gloves, then pulled the rope out of the bucket and draped it over the edge of the roof. Now everything was set for the final phase. Harry and Marv made their way to the third floor, then hobbled up toward the roof. "I don't care if I get the electric chair," Harry muttered. "I'm killing that kid." "If we can catch him," Marv said. "We'll catch him," Harry shot back. "He's on the roof. Where's he going to go?" "Last time he went to a tree house." Kevin heard their voices. He stepped over the side of the roof, holding tightly down the kerosene-soaked rope. Or holding tightly onto the kerosene-soaked rope. Sorry. Then he slid down. The kerosene made the rope slippery, but the leather gloves gave him a decent grip. He landed on the scaffold, let go of the rope, and wiped off the gloves. Above him, Harry kicked open the roof door. "Surrender, kid!" he yelled. Marv peered around. "I don't see him, Harry." "I'm down here, you morons!" Kevin shouted. Harry and Marv ran to the side of the roof and looked over. Kevin was standing on the scaffold next to the open cans of varnish. He waved cheerfully to them. "Nice night for a neck injury." "Let's get him," Marv muttered to Harry. He grabbed the rope. Harry slapped him across the face. "Are you nuts?" "What?" "That's exactly what he wants us to do. Have you got a memory?" Harry took the rope from Marv. He gave it a tug. It seemed secure. Just to make sure, he checked to see where it was tied. He spotted the bag of cement. His lips curled into a crafty smile. "What?" Marv asked. "He's smart," Harry said, "but not smart enough." He went to the cement bag and untied the rope. 100 pounds of cement, he said, reading the label. It'll hold the kid, but it ain't going to hold us. We get on the rope, and down we go. So, Harry quickly tied the rope to a strong stationary iron pipe. We'll just have to disappoint the little creep. Harry, Marv said, looking at his partner with admiration. You're a genius. Harry went over first, and Marv followed. Neither of them heard Kevin striking a kitchen match on the stack of bricks below them. With a grin, Kevin held the lit match near the end of the rope. The moment it touched the kerosene, flames would shoot straight up toward Harry and Marv. Marv was not even halfway down when he smelled something funny. You wearing aftershave? He called down to Harry. What are you talking about? Harry snapped. I smell something. Harry noticed the rope was wet. He sniffed it. That ain't aftershave, he said. It's kerosene. The rope's soaked in it. Why would somebody soak a rope in kerosene? Marv asked. Harry couldn't figure out the answer to that. Curious, he looked down toward the scaffold. He saw Kevin's smiling face. Then he saw the flickering match. Now he knew. Merry Christmas, Kevin chimed. He moved the match to the tip of the rope. With a flash, the rope ignited. Fire began crackling upward. Kevin stuffed the matchbox in his pack, leapt off the scaffold, and ran down the street. Harry's eyes bulged with terror. Go up! He shouted. He and Marv tried to scramble up the rope. They groped with their hands, pushed with their feet. The rope jerked mildly. In a moment, Harry and Marv had their bodies wrapped around a torch. Ah! Their screams rang up and down the street as they let go and fell downward. Both of them landed smack on the scaffold. It lurched downward. Harry and Marv fell off. The open cans of varnish catapulted into the air. The two men landed on their backs in the rubble-strewn garden. High above them, the cans tumbled in the air. Varnish spewed out, forming a thick liquid arc across the moonlit sky. Harry and Marv could do nothing but stare helplessly as the goo plummeted straight down. With a loud splash, it coated them from head to toe. Down the street at the corner of Central Park West, Kevin grabbed a payphone and punched 911. He panted breathlessly, his chest heaving. His eyes darted around nervously as he waited. Across the street, pigeons roosted in the streets of Central Park. Over his shoulder, Harry and Marv were picking themselves up in the garden. Come on, answer, Kevin thought in his mind. He raced through the final stage of his plan. If it didn't work, this would be his last Christmas on Earth. Hello, came a voice on the other end. Kevin practically shouted into the mouthpiece. Hello, the two guys who robbed Duncan's toy chest are in the park at Central Park West and 96th Street. You'll see a bright light. Hurry, they've got a gun. He slammed the receiver down and looked up the street. Harry and Marv were now climbing over the garden railing. Harry was reaching for his gym bag. I'm down here, Kevin shouted. Come and get me before I call the cops. The two men immediately began limping up the street. Their faces were twisted with agony as they forced their battered bodies forward. Kevin turned across the street, but he stopped short. A bus was crossing in the intersection, slowing down to let off passengers at the next block. The delay was costly. Harry and Marv were gaining ground. Kevin could smell the varnish. Racing around the back of the bus, he crossed Central Park West. He leapt onto the curb on the opposite side. His feet came down on a patch of ice. They slipped forward, pitching Kevin into the air. He came down hard on the sidewalk, skidding into the park wall. The strap of his backpack broke, and the pack flew off. Kevin sat up dazed. He could see Harry and Marv across the street now. Marv spotted him and pointed. Scrambling to his feet, Kevin ran to the backpack and scooped it off the ground. He cast a panicked look back across the street. Another bus went by, blocking his view. When it passed, the opposite side of Central Park West was empty. Harry and Marv were gone. Confused, Kevin stared for a split second. Then he turned and ran. He only got a few steps when he felt a hand grip on his shoulder. With a gasp, he looked up into Harry's sooty, bruised face. In a voice that froze the blood in Kevin's veins, Harry said, Let's go for a stroll. He pulled Kevin through the entrance into Central Park. As he grabbed Kevin's backpack and slammed him into a rock formation, ripping the pack open, he dug out the Polaroids. Marv looked over his shoulder. He held one photo up to the light of the street lamp. They were in Duncan's toy chest, looking stupid, their hands full of cash. Harry chuckled. "This'll look nice in the photo album." "Hey, look," Marv said, pulling out Kevin's Talkboy. Harry grabbed it, rewound the tape a little, then pressed play. "We ain't robbing houses no more," came Marv's voice. "We're robbing toy stores. Tonight, we're hitting Duncan's toy chest." Harry clicked it off. "Hey, that was me," Marv said with a smile. "The little jerk was taping us," Harry said, pulling out the cassette. He threw Kevin's pack to the ground and stuffed the cassette and photos into his gym bag. "You may have won the battle, little dude," Marv said, "but you lost the war." Harry smirked. "You want not mess around with us, pal. We could be dangerous." Suddenly, Harry's smirk disappeared. His clammy, varnish-smeared hand lurched forward. Kevin tried to back off, but Harry grabbed him by the neck. "Should we burn his hair off?" Harry snarled. "How about we rip it off?" Marv suggested. "Throw him in a basement," Harry said, his voice dripping with mockery. "Bomb him with a sewer pipe." With each word, Harry's grip tightened. Kevin couldn't breathe. He clutched at Harry's hand, but the man was too strong. "I have a better idea," Harry said. With his free hand, he reached into the gym bag. Kevin stiffened with fear as Harry slowly pulled out a gun. Oh boy. Sounds scary. Join me for the next chapter to see what happens next.